Good night, everybody. This is the July 10th, 2023 Lakeville Board of Selectmen meeting. We have all members present with members Fabian, Carboni, and Day. A little bit later at 6:15 or a little after 6:15, depending on how long it takes, we'll meet with the Finance Committee. And then around 6:30 or a little after that, we'll be meeting with the Lakeville members of the Freetown Lakeville Regional School Committee. So that will be a little later if that's the part that you're waiting for. So first up on the agenda will be our select board announcements. Lakeville Arts Council sponsoring 4 free concerts to be held on July 11th, July 18th, July 25th, and August 1st. Each will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the center stage located at the Old Townhouse Building, 2 Precinct Street. In the event of rain, concerts will be moved 2 days later on Thursday of that week. For any more information, please visit www.lakevilleartcouncilma.org/concerts. Big just acknowledgement to some of the heroism we have in town. Brian Pasita, one of the Lakeville call firefighters, he's been deployed to Quebec as part of the 16-member DCR wildland firefighting team. Brian works for DCR as his full-time job. He'll be helping battle some of the more than 70 wildfires that have continued to burn in Quebec province since the beginning of June. So if you've been seeing any of that smoke in the air around here, Brian's going to hopefully go help us with that. If you ever want to volunteer on one of our commissions or committees, the town currently has vacancies on the Conservation Commission, Cable Advisory Committee, Capital Expenditures Committee, the Energy Advisory Committee, and the Open Space Committee. To apply, please visit the town's website on the town clerk's page on the volunteer form. And if there are no other announcements, we'll move on to town administrator announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Lakeville Senior Center has received a grant for $13,500 for the Massachusetts Council on Aging to fund the town's outreach worker, which is a shared position for the town of Berkeley. The town has received a $30,000 grant from the Massachusetts Historical Commission to support renovations to the Old Town Hall. Combined with the $30,000 appropriation by town meeting in 2020, this award allows the town to replace the building's roof and is one of several improvements that are currently underway to replace the Old Town Hall. Preserve the Old Town Hall, excuse me, and make it a functional space for town business and activities. Construction of the DPW administration building is ongoing. This long overdue project will provide badly needed meeting and storage space and a permanent home for the department's administrative staff. Road paving activities are also continuing. Contractors in the Department of Public Works recently completed work on Pickens Street. They'll conduct sealing work on Kingman Street beginning July 13th. They'll begin paving work on South Pickens and South Kingman Streets on July 20th. Taunton Water has completed its survey for the outdoor stage project and has determined that the 16-inch line runs underneath the existing location. We believe that it should be possible to place the footings for the pavilion to avoid the line and anticipate that the work will take place after the current concert season. In the meantime, we've equipped the stage with a portable cover as an interim measure. Next regular meeting of the Select Board will be at 6 p.m. on July 31st here at the Lakeville Police Station. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Ari? Okay, moving on then to agenda item 3. Discuss and possible vote to approve the gift agreement with TAC Vega, Massachusetts LLC for installation of guardrail on town property located opposite of 310 Kenneth Welch Drive. So Ari, if you'd like to give us the rundown. I'm
very pleased to bring this forward. As you know, we've been working with TAC Vega regarding issues at 310 Kenneth Welch Drive for quite some time now. There have been coordination meetings over the past several months. The change of management has helped. And we made some progress in public safety, water usage. The board approved the water allocation request last meeting, I believe, as well as parking. There's still a long-term solution to parking issues on site under consideration by the Conservation Commission. But in the meantime, TAC Vega has worked with their tenants to identify interim off-site locations. In addition, the ownership has agreed to install a guardrail at their expense to physically prevent parking on town-owned land across from the street from the building, and to remediate damage to the site by reseeding the area. You have an agreement in your packet which authorizes TAC Vega to access the town's property and conduct the work as described. This will hopefully provide a physical barrier to prevent the parking that's been going on there. It's better than it was, but still quite a bit. It seems to be coming back a bit to some degree as well. This has been reviewed by council. Approved. Yeah,
that was my question.
Yeah. Any questions for Ari on this as presented?
I have one, I think, which I actually just thought of, so I didn't get to look at it. do we give them a time limit on how fast or slow or how much time they can take to do it?
Well, the license has a date, has an end
Okay.
date on it, which I believe was, hold on, I can give you the date.
6 months from the date of.
6 months, I believe, yeah.
Okay,
So, because, yes, the reason it's 6 months is because the seeding can't take place till after September 1.
Yeah.
And once seeding takes place during the summer, so you need to continue for them access to it, so they get 6 months. They've told me, they've got the quote in place, they've got everything ready to go, just waiting to release it, so they've told me they're ready to go as soon as we get everything signed.
okay, thanks.
Well, I'll make a motion, to approve the gift agreement with TAC Vega Mass LLC for installation of a guardrail on town property located opposite 310 Kenneth Welch Drive.
Second,
Just before we vote, just want to say thanks, Ari, and everybody else involved. There's been a long list of people helping get this done, so thank you for everybody that took a part in this. All right, members Fabian,
aye.
Carboni,
Aye.
Day, aye. Thank you, passes unanimously. All right, we're at 6:10, so we can't start with Finance Committee yet. Or 6:30 for the School Committee. So we will go down to number 6, discuss and possible vote on a request from the Director of Inspectional Services to appoint Todd McNeil as wiring inspector. Alright. And I believe we all got the letter from Mr. Darling. Were there any questions on this appointment?
No, other than we just want to thank Robert Canessa for his 32 years of dedication to the town.
Yes. I did confirm with the Director of Inspectional Services too, that since this gentleman does own his own electrical business, how do we handle if it was his own project? He said that we do have secondary, third inspectors that will take care of that.
Well, I'll make a motion, to approve the request from the Director of Inspectional Services to appoint Todd McNeil as wiring inspector with an appointment term to expire July 31st, 2024.
Second,
Okay. Member Carboni,
Aye.
Fabian,
aye.
Day, aye. Thank you very much, Mr. McNeil. Just a few minutes here. Mark, how long do you think your update would take on MBTA? I want to try to get that out of the way.
Sure.
All right, come on up, sir. So our town planner, Mark Resnick, has an update on the MBTA community project that's been going on.
As you saw in your packet, Serped, our regional planning agency, has completed a technical assistance report that was funded through a grant we received from Mass Housing Partnership. This is to help us comply with Section 3A, which is the MBTA multifamily zoning requirement. So they did a couple things as part of this report. The first is to do an analysis of our current 40R zoning district. Since we had one that does allow multifamily by right, that is one of the requirements of the MBTA, or of Section 3A, is that you have multifamily by right with 15 units per acre. And that, and 5% of our housing stock, current housing stock, which would be, we would have to allow for 231 housing units. They completed the analysis, and it shows that we allow for overall in the combined district, because we have two sub-districts, 24.1 units per acre, and for a total calculation of 770 possible units, that if it was completely built out to the max. The second part of this is a suitability analysis, which kind of looked at the town and with a whole series of factors from looking at issues related to climate resilience, areas of existing infrastructure, and other characteristics. And to determine that if we did have to zone an area for another area for multifamily housing, it at least gives us some direction in that regard. So where we're at right now that this report is complete, we will finish, Serpent will prepare the application. We have to provide a few certifications from the clerk as it relates to the adoption of the 40R district, and that'll be submitted to, it's not the HCD, it's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for their review and possible, hopefully an approval, so.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mark?
So this is, we did this on our own. We pursued this, initiative just, to take a look at our current inventory. So that's great. I mean, I'm glad that, you know, Serpent was able to, you know, help me to navigate through all of that. So this submittal is more an initiative on our behalf because I guess the communities don't have to respond past their initial, I guess, plan by December 25. Okay, so we're kind of ahead of the game here.
That's correct. So there was a grant opportunity to do this evaluation to see if our 40R district does comply. So we saw it as an opportunity to kind of get ahead of it, because if it's determined by, this is still not an absolute, this is in Serped's opinion, that we do comply with the requirements, because the executive EOHLC will review the language of the zoning and to determine whether it meets their standard, not just the basic density requirement. There's a little bit more to their evaluation of our district. But should they determine that our district is compliant, then we're finished way ahead of the game. If they determine that for some reason it's not sufficient, we now know well ahead of that December 2025 date, and we've already had suitability analysis done, and we can then work towards figuring out where we might locate or expand this existing district in order to comply.
Great.
Leah, do you have anything for Mark?
No, I'm good, thanks.
I just was really impressed with the level of detail in it. So thank you for going through all that. I think the map is really helpful for residents too, if they take a moment to look and see where these, zones that are marked more suitable. Some of them are already built up, but then there's some others that might pop up as, oh, I hadn't thought about that yet. Do we know if, has Serpent put these together for other towns? Have any other towns that you know have heard back after submitting this? Or are we still too early in the process?
We're still too early in the process. The state has only just begun accepting the applications from the smaller communities. Okay. So I don't believe any of the smaller communities, such as Lakeville, who may have submitted, and I'm not even sure how many may have submitted.
Okay, great, nice.
This is great. We're staying right on top of this one.
Yeah, and then hopefully if they come back and tell us it's not in compliance, it's a much smaller delta to get into compliance if we have to go down that path. Right. So, great.
Actually, I do have one. Do you know if our counterparts in Freetown applied for the same grant that?
I don't know if they've applied for the same grant. Okay. I do know that they are working towards and intend to try and comply.
Yeah.
This situation is quite different as we are an MBTA community as opposed to an adjacent community. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right, well, appreciate all the work, Mark, and everybody that went into it. I'm sure this will start some planning board discussions as well. So.
It could.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? Have a great night.
Yep.
All right, it's 6:18. I see Mr. Beals is connected. Can you hear us, Darren? Oh,
Darren?
he was moving. There he goes. Yes, sir. It's a little quiet, though. We might have to see if Jose's around, if he can help us with the volume. We'll do our best. As long as you can hear, as long as you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, just wave violently if you need us to stop. You're on the big screen.
Am I on the big screen?
Yeah,
You are. We should take a picture of it.
All right, so we will move back to number 4, as it is after 6:15, and let Chairman Plonka open up the Finance Committee meeting, so we can begin that business.
Okay, this is the June 10th Finance Committee meeting, and it is almost at 6:20. So with that, I think we're going to do the transfer request first, correct?
I believe so. I didn't take a chance to look at your agenda.
Yeah,
What
oh
are the
yeah, so,
business-
sorry. So we just have two things tonight.
Okay.
Review and approval of the transfer requests. And then we have 1 meeting minutes from
Okay, perfect.
last month that we need to review. That's all we have for our agenda.
Excellent. All right, yeah, let's go through the transfer request then. Mr. Hassett has joined us. Will you be shepherding us through this effort?
Sure.
As usual?
Good evening, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, I'm pleased to inform you that there are no requests tonight to further access the Finance Committee's reserve fund, and that will leave an untransferred balance of over $51,500 in the account, which is some good news, and that'll help with our next free cash certification. We have 3 departmental transfers before you for both the Select Board and Finance Committee to consider. And they are, in each case, transferring from the same department's expenses, if you will, to the same department's salary accounts. So the first one is sort of a year-end housekeeping. There are 3 items. The Select Board salaries for $1,268, the Planning Board salaries for $237, and the Park salaries for $1,298. And in each case, each of these salary accounts will be supported by a transfer from that same department's expense accounts, as listed in the form. And there were 2 reasons for this small, modest overage. One was that with respect to the Select Board and Planning salary accounts, the original budgets were for a straight 26 or 52-week year, and we did have 1 extra day on the front end of the year that had not been built into the budgets. You may recall, Lorraine probably recalls, a few years ago we had this wholesale with a lot of departments. We didn't have that case this year, primarily because we had vacancies in some of the larger departments for part of the year, so anyway, it's a couple of modest items that did exceed the original appropriation. And lastly, the parks had a very successful season, and their lifeguard expense did exceed what was originally planned. And so in all 3 of these cases, we have what we believe are the appropriate budgets going forward in '24.
If you recall, the board had approved that increasing the lifeguard salaries that wasn't budgeted, so we expected this.
And they did open in June, as you know, so we did have a late June payroll for the seasonal staff at the parks.
Okay, any members on the Select Board or Finance Committee have questions on these transfers? Okay.
And I want me to make a motion?
Sure, Darren, could you hear that all okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Do we know if Member Candido's on there as well, or just?
He sent me an email and says missed that connecting flight, so he's most likely not
All right.
available.
Just want to make sure we knew everybody was there. All right, perfect. Sure.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of appropriations as presented for the departments.
Second?
All right, and this is all 6 of us, correct? All right. All right, I'll run through, I guess. Plonka?
Aye.
DeRosa? Aye. Fields?
Aye.
Fabian?
Aye.
Carboni?
Aye.
Day, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And Todd, you'll need Chris and I to sign these?
Please,
before we
and
leave
you can
tonight?
just give them to Ari and he'll get them to me to
Okay.
post. Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the next one.
The next one we have is from the fire department. It's, a request for $10,725 to cover overtime coverage associated with holiday and vacation pay. And the chief has provided you with a fairly detailed explanation of the various factors that make this a difficult line to budget or estimate. The chief's here tonight too, if you have specific operational questions. And this would be funded again from transfers from 2 fire expense lines to support the overage and overtime.
Any questions for Todd or the chief on this item?
Yes, so, Todd. I feel like this is the second or the third year in a row
Third.
that we're, third year in a
I
row
believe
that
it's the
we're.
third, yes.
Right, so I know with all your wealth of experience, would you say we need to take a closer look at the fire budget itself if we're consistently, and maybe do some comparisons to adding people versus overtime or?
I think given what we've seen in calls for service for the department over the last few years, and the current staffing levels, we actually already have begun discussions with the chief. Ari and I have begun some preliminary discussions about looking at what we might consider doing with staffing going forward, provided, you know, we can sustain and support that level of increase. But you're right, this is the third year in a row we've been before you for transfers for overtime.
Yeah, it's really hard to predict overtime
Sure.
for emergency departments, I guess, you know. I know for police, the police chief can have a little more control, but I think sometimes with fire, it's like,
So the biggest difference in police is that they have the 911 grant. And we fully budget the dispatchers, but they can, there's a chunk right there that he can always charge back to that grant.
yep,
So he always ends up with some breakage there. It's just a convenience that he has, it benefits the town, it's just good for him. Fire doesn't have that benefit at all. And we are starting to look a little more carefully in some ideas as far as staffing goes, because obviously, on a per dollar basis, overtime is a lot more expensive than a regular person, which is a straight cost versus, you know, time and a half. But we need to be careful to make sure that we can make this work in a way that makes sense fiscally for the town. So
Right.
that's what we're starting to get into.
so just, I know that, you know, and everything, private business, you know, municipalities, whatever, you know, sometimes it's easier to pay the overtime, but I mean, at some point, I think when it gets costly like that,
Yeah.
it may be more beneficial to pay benefits and actually hire full-time people. So if that's what you say you're working on, I guess I would just ask that ahead of the budget season, maybe we, Mr. Chair, can have a talk about that and just focus maybe on
Yeah.
that ahead of the next budget season.
Yeah, we're already planning on having a conversation with you about that
Okay.
this fall, so.
Yeah.
And as we developed the FY24 budget, we did have some preliminary discussions, but we felt where the growth was off, we weren't in a position to support something that we weren't sure we could sustain
Yeah.
with recurring revenues.
Yeah.
But we're gonna take another look at that this fall.
Okay, great, thanks.
Kind of a follow-on comment to what Leah was saying. I mean, one, you never want to have to transfer overtime. It's tough to figure out for such a department, but I mean, it's not just the money too. So like, I want to be cautious of, you know, are we burning out any of these people by calling them
Oh, no,
back?
absolutely.
And not getting them
Absolutely.
enough rest between shifts. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a very good discussion to keep having.
This also, by the way, ties indirectly to number 8 on your agenda. Not explicitly, but, you know, the revenue side's a big piece of that. We're gonna be talking about some ways that we think we can, you know, recover costs a little better, which will help us down the line as well.
I'll make a motion, to approve the,
Finance committee, do you guys have anything?
Nope.
Cover my question.
Okay. All right, go for it.
All right, I'll make a motion, to approve the transfer appropriations, within the fire department as presented.
Second.
Okay, member Plonka,
Aye.
DeRosa,
Aye.
Beals,
Aye.
Fabian,
Aye.
Carboni,
Aye.
Day, aye, passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to the next one, please.
And the last transfer we have, is, for $460 to, cover, automobile liability insurance, an amendment to our policy. After we met in June, we did receive a end of year invoice from the carrier, related to changes in the fleet that occurred during the year, adds and deducts. And, so we found that the budget was short $460. This will allow us to pay the additional premium for FY '23 to be funded from the, group insurance wellness program line.
All right. Any questions on this? Once, going twice?
And then I'll make a motion to approve the transfer, request of transfer appropriations, for the group insurance to the property and liability insurance as presented.
Second.
All right, Plonka,
Aye.
DeRosa,
Aye.
Beals,
Aye.
Fabian,
Aye.
Carboni,
Aye.
Day, aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. And is that the last one, I believe?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chairman Plonka and myself will just sign those before we go home tonight. Thank you. Thank you. All right, go continue with your business.
Yep, we have one other item for old business, and that is to, approve the June 12th meeting minutes, which were distributed to all members. So I'll make a motion to approve the June 12th meeting minutes as stated, as documented, I should say.
Second.
Okay, member, Beals? Member DeRosa? And Chairman Plonka, aye. So with that, does the Finance Committee have anything else? Okay, thanks, Darren.
Here.
Great, thanks. So with that, I will close the June 10th Finance Committee meeting. Oh, I gotta make a motion.
Yeah.
A motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Member, yeah, Beals? Member Beals? Motion to close the meeting. Thanks.
Aye.
And Chairman Plonka, aye. Thank you.
All right, close at 6:31. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll take a position. So once the Finance Committee is left, we'll ask those members to come up and have our next meeting.
Yep. On your way.
All right, I think they'll be back. All right, good evening. How's everybody? Would you mind just introducing yourselves quick for people that haven't gotten to interact with you before?
Hi, everybody. My name is John Burke.
John, all right tonight?
Steve Sylvia.
Good to see you, Steve.
And Steve Owen.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us this evening. So the reason we're all here tonight is we had a resignation on the school committee. And the IMA is an intermunicipal agreement, thank you, between Freetown Lakeville and the district. Requires that within 30 days, if there's a vacancy, that the members, the remaining Lakeville representatives on the school committee and the Lakeville Select Board get together and within 30 days appoint a new member. So this is the first, I think, for all of us here. So we kind of did a little legwork and made sure we understood the process. Essentially we're acting as town councils. We're at a super committee where it's part of one committee and us acting together. Anybody this evening can make a motion or a second. We will all be taking part in the vote this evening. And we have 2 appointees. So there's a couple of ways that this can happen. My thought was if both applicants are here this evening, we give them an opportunity to give a short statement why they feel they're a worthy candidate. We then see if any of yourselves or our members, if we had any short questions that both applicants would be willing to answer, not specific to any one of them, and then move forward. This could be a motion on a particular name, depending on what goes down. This can also be a ballot vote. That is also, according to Robert's rules, something that we could do if so desired. Either way is perfectly fine. We already talked to the town clerk. We have other organizations in Lakeville that use that method today. So I don't know if anybody else in the select board has something like to say before, maybe asking the applicants if they'd like to say anything.
I would, just because this is, the first opportunity I think we've really had to discuss the resignation. I just would really like to thank Sherry Barron for, just the, you know, the unbelievable care and commitment of, our kids, our parents, our schools. And I was sad to see her resign, but, you know, I know Sherry will still be thinking about all the kids. She's an amazing teacher. You know, some of our kids had her, so I just wanted to take this time to publicly thank Sherry for everything that she's done. And, you know, just, sad to see her go, but that's it.
No, that's a very good point. Thank you very much.
We second that.
All right, Lorraine, did you have anything?
No, not at this
Okay.
time, no.
Do we have both applicants with us this evening? I know I saw Brenna's there. Is Crystal here this evening? Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't think we got a chance to meet in person yet, so. All right, Crystal, since you're closer to us, would you like to, you know,
Do you want me to sit there?
Actually,
just
over
here,
by the
here.
microphone.
There's no mic over there.
We have a microphone over here,
Yeah. You know, 3 minutes or so, just why you're interested in the opportunity and what you'd bring to the committee at least over the next 8 months.
My name is Crystal Ng. I've lived in the town for over 20 years. I have a lot of experience in dealing with kids and IEPs and education. As many of you know, I have also had some frustration with the district. This was pre-pandemic, and I can understand the parents' frustration of dealing with different things. I went before the school committee. They could not help me. I ended up having to file with DESE and go outside, and I took it all the way to the Board of Education in Boston. And with that, I feel that I don't think a parent should have to do that. I've done that. I've gotten over it. I've moved forward. I've learned. I actually became a paralegal so that I could take care of my son's case. I don't want to say that we won, because I don't think anybody won in that instance. My son went out of district, and he remained there until he passed away.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. But I can see how other people are frustrated, and I just want to bring my experience in working with kids, special education, general education. Right now, I work as a family partner for Bay State Community Services, where I work with parents of mentally ill children, getting them the services that they need. A lot of times I end up helping parents get services that they need. And I was told I was quite good at it, and I've only been doing it for 9 months. And I really would like this opportunity to work with parents in the district, work with kids, to get the focus back on the kids. I don't think the school committee has been focusing a lot on people's personal lives. I don't think that should come into play. When they had the 10 best students in the district, it was overshadowed by someone's personal life on the school committee. And I thought that was a shame, because we're there to talk about the kids. We're not there to talk about so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that and somebody lost their license and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but we're here to work on the issues that are affecting the kids. And I feel like we've lost focus on that. And one thing, as obviously as everybody can see, that I am Cape Verdean, but I also don't want to be taken as a token. I have been working with parents in this district for a long time. During the pandemic, I was very frustrated working with the past director of student services. And that's one of the main reasons why I stepped down as CPAC chair. Because I spent 3 years fighting for things and fighting with someone that I didn't think I had to. And I'm not saying that's now. I love Ashley. I am so glad that Ashley was appointed director of student services. She is amazing, and she did a lot of that work that she didn't have to do. You know, she did a lot of extra work, and I am so happy that she is the director of student services now. I've met with Alan a few times. I really like Alan, and I think Alan can take us in a different direction. But I really think our focus needs to be back on the kids. Does anybody have any questions?
We'll give Ms. Donahue an opportunity to kind of make a statement.
Oh,
We'll see
I'm
if
sorry.
there's-
I didn't even know you were here.
It's all right.
Sorry.
So, awesome. So we'll swap seats for a moment and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Hi, how are you?
Good, nice to see you.
You as well. So I'm going to be very forthcoming and outright with it. Because this is very simply an 8-month appointment until next April, I have no interest in running for the school committee. But because this issue is so contentious and there is so much misinformation on both sides, and that's what's pretty much going to be happening during this 8-month period, I feel that it's important to have someone who is transgender on the committee actually offering a point of view that nobody else on the committee has. This is not to call you out, but I have no problem being a token because I have an experience that you're going to be discussing that will affect the students, the children, and I'm not just going to be focusing on the policy as it concerns students who are transgender, but also students who aren't, because they're the ones who really need the most help, and they need a set of guidance built into this policy that also helps them if they decide to detransition. And I don't think this policy is going to consider every angle that it needs to if someone who doesn't actually know the situation isn't on the committee. Which is not to say that you're bad at your jobs, which is not to say that the school committee doesn't have the best interests. I feel like in this situation, not just in this town, but in this country, everybody was kind of caught off guard with how sudden it hit, especially after being locked inside with the pandemic. It kind of just bloomed over and exploded in this can of worms. But if we just continue doing what everybody else did, it's going to continue to be a back and forth, a contentious issue where the parents don't feel heard because their concerns aren't being met, but the school committee feels like they were doing what's best for the kids. And it's really hard to make, you know, a middle ground because everybody thinks they're doing what's best, but nobody knows the actual situation like someone who is transgender does. It's not to say that I'm automatically slated one way or another. It's not to say I won't listen to parents or work with parents because I was raised by my grandmother. So I don't have this new age thinking, this real, I have a very level-headed, concerned wisdom given by a 94-year-old woman who survived the Depression. She lived and grew in a way that was considerate of everybody, and that's what I feel I can bring to the committee. I don't have all the experience and all the degrees and all of that working with kids, but I grew up in this town. I went to the school system. I remember everything about my experience, and I feel like I know how I could help the kids, the parents, and the school committee in this particular situation during this half-appointed term.
I'll be going back and forth a bit, so. I mean, before I ask if there's any questions, I think, thank you both for showing your interest and for giving, two very well thought out statements. Thank you very much for that. As pointed out, this is an 8-month opportunity, so it'll be through April 1st, 2024 is when the next town election will be held. So regardless of what happens this evening, I hope both of you continue to show that passion and consider getting involved, whether it's the school committee or some other way to participate. I mean, you're both well known in town, you're both very involved, so it's nice to see that you've got additional interest here. Does anybody have questions that we could pose to both considered applicants this evening?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure,
I
go
can.
ahead.
So I've got to ask the budget question. What type of experience do you have, with budget development? As, you know, that's another huge issue that, you know, our municipalities as well as our school district is facing. So I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about your experience with building a budget.
I have none. Beyond my household budget and learning what the Parks Department did, I have absolutely no budgeting or accounting experience. I would be relying on the other committee members and their experience.
Thank you.
I have some, maybe not, not much. Yeah, I've done some budgeting at work. Well, no, that's a lie. I've had some budgeting as far as like getting my clients budgeting and working on their finances, as well as trying to get everything on the straight and narrow to get them out of the holes that they've dug themselves into. But as far as like a big project, like, you know, school budget, no.
Okay. Should I ask my second question before Crystal leaves?
Sure, yeah.
All right. And my other question would be for the both of you. I would be asking this question, you know, for anybody, that's looking for appointment. Do you see any, chance of conflict, for you if you should be appointed to the position?
I would not be able to help anybody in the district anymore with their IEPs.
Okay.
That would probably be a conflict of interest for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Not that I'm aware of. The only potential conflict I could see was, do you guys meet on Thursdays? Oh, then I'm good. When the first Thursdays, first and third Thursdays, I have another meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Very good.
Any other questions? Leah, school committee?
I don't.
No.
I would just repeat on behalf of the committee, but thank you for both putting yourselves out there in the submissions. It's appreciated. It is tough to fill these spots. I was appointed in the same manner, so I appreciate that both put themselves out there today. So thank you for noting that earlier, but on behalf of the committee, same thing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If there's an irony of it, the last time we did this are the two individuals to my right. So.
That's true.
So the appointed and then still maintain interest in a follow-on election. So there is that opportunity there.
So it's not so bad.
No.
You might get addicted to it. It's all right.
You know, I will say just, they both have the qualifications to sit on a committee. It is a challenging role. It's not just any one particular student, it's all students and how you do that. So I would just say, based upon this, how do we move the option for both? And I would just make a motion for a ballot vote to see how we progress and who the candidate that moves forward.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Second. Okay, so we have a first and a second on request to a ballot vote. What that means then is that, generally speaking, when you have two people vying for one position, that means that somebody would normally make a motion to say, I make a motion that so-and-so be appointed, because motions are supposed to be in a positive. They would make a motion to appoint a certain person, and then you go down and vote for everybody. So that option gives you the opportunity to then vote in favor of one or the other person, so both person actually has like a shot at it. So that is something. I did bring ballot materials in the event that that option was used this evening. So motion and a second was made. We do have to vote on that. So the six of us will vote on the ballot to use the ballot, and then I'll talk about what that will look like and go through that process. So the first and second, is there any discussion on this before voting?
May I ask a question?
You couldn't see, go ahead. Just microphone and then name for the record. Oh, sorry, it's over here. Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Joy Malomo. Oh, excuse me, sorry,
Go ahead.
I can't move. Okay, whoa.
They either don't move or they just go the whole way.
Okay, the position that Sherry stepped down from, what are her duties? Is there any, like your question that you just had, is there any financial duties that she had to deal with? So the two candidates would also deal with?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you're part of the school committee, and then there are subcommittees that you are either sign up for or where you come from, your experience or what have you. So there are 3 or 4 that meet regularly outside of the school committee meeting. The only thing from a financial perspective is every member votes on the budget, okay? There is a finance committee where there is a combination of town personnel on both Lakeville and Freetown.
Yeah, she wasn't part of that one though, right?
No, she was not.
She was part of, it was health and wellness.
So she was the member for health and wellness, and that doesn't necessarily have to stay with the seat.
That person, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
so
okay.
it can rotate
okay.
in that particular case. So when the committee reorgs every year, there are different pieces. So some might come up and say, you know, I want to be on the health and wellness committee in that case. There is a warrant committee, but it's all 8, right? So it's not like a subset of that. So every member signs the warrant. That's just paying the bills in that particular case. So that's reviewing expenses and, you know, those things. So that would be the only.
Every member gets to pay bills, is that what you just said?
Every member has to sign for bills to be paid.
Oh, I got you, okay. Is there like a bond that covers us for that, or something like that?
If that's
Like if
the budget.
somebody, okay,
So you get a budget, then each line item has that budget, so then you see the individual line items that you would pay the respective bills.
okay, thank you. So I was asking because, you know, that was a great question, but if she's not, if this person is not solely responsible for that, and you all teach that new person about looking at budgets and all that, I don't want that to just disqualify one over the other, and I also just wanted to make one statement that, and I like both of these ladies in the community. I think they do a great job, and I have nothing personal with any one of them. But
Is this part of a question? Because we weren't opening
No,
it
this was
we
just
weren't
like-
opening it for public comment.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I was gonna say this is maybe possibly public comment. Do I gotta wait?
I'll let you finish and then we'll move on.
Okay,
Since you're there.
I just wanted to make mention that our school committee had already said that they weren't going to move forward with any transgender policy being written. So that was a big deal, and, you know, in a couple of the last meetings. So I don't want that to be part of the decision-making if you guys, are not, you know, aware of that.
To be fair, any board or committee can change their mind on a whim. The select board has discussed things that previous members have not wanted to discuss. So I think they are their own governing body. If they decide next week to discuss a policy on some other topic, they're more than welcome to
Okay,
do so.
that's fine, but I didn't want the 3 of you guys to maybe make a decision on that because of the gender, information and all that. You know, so, they had mentioned that they weren't even gonna make a decision, they were gonna hold off and they were gonna wait and talk to legal more, I guess. Right, isn't that what you
Well,
guys said?
either way, any policy still has to go through several iterations, right? So that discussion was even just at a policy meeting perspective. So there's multiple iterations. So this is not going to be like determined at the next school committee meetings. I think you heard that it takes multiple school committee meetings just to that whole piece, right?
Yeah.
I will say, just from an education perspective, anybody that comes onto the school committee or a new board, right? There's a whole education that goes through. We like to have new members go through the policy committee because that's everything in the district, what's in our purview as a body, what is not. There are, what can we do, what can we say, what can we not say, what can we approve, how do we approve things?
Sure.
So that's regardless of who it is, right? And I hope both of these or one of them come back in the election piece, because that's still part of the education. Right, so it's not like any one of us have a degree in school committee and that makes
Y'all
us
kind of
experts.
learned
You all have to learn.
as you went
Wow, my
along,
southern
right?
accent just came out there. Everyone has to go through the same process of how does this work, you know, and that's everything, whether it's safety, whether it's athletics, whether it's communication, whether it's school records, what have you.
Yep, okay. Thank you. I just was trying to get like, what are the, duties of Sherry's seat, you know, of Miss Barron's seat? And I don't know if you guys have it written down in front of you and somebody could read it off.
And again, it's not specific to her seat, it's the same.
It was
as-
the subcommittees. I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
so
It was the okay,
a
so
person
it's,
can come in and say, you know what, I don't want
so
to
she
be.
was on Health and Wellness Subcommittee and what other one?
So she was
do
a
you know?
representative for Health and Wellness, which is a during the day type position, so that sort of limits, you know, I understand people have lives outside of that. Part of the warrant committee, as far as that, going to sign the initial pieces to that. And
She was also the district clerk.
she's, yes,
Which
so,
was transferred.
yeah, so
at last meeting.
the district clerk is one of those that will certify the elections, if you will, and there's other smaller issues, but those are all listed, the top four are listed in the regional agreement to identify what they do and what their roles and responsibilities. The subcommittees, I say, are flexible, right? But everyone should participate in some subcommittee aspect of it.
Sure, right, because you're all on the same board and you should all understand it. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joy. All right, so we've got our first and second on making this a ballot appointment. So we'll now vote. I'm going to blank on names, I apologize. So
I'll say Owen, I.
thank you.
Sylvia, aye.
Carboni?
Aye.
Fabian?
Nay.
Day? Aye. Okay, so that's 5-1, majority carries on going to a ballot vote. So you don't see it often, but here's the process and it works. We did create stuff just in case this did happen tonight. So the town clerk prepared, just so that we have this correct format. We'll ask Mr. Sky if he would mind being our tally. So this will be for after we collect.
Okay.
I made plenty of extras just if people want to see an example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get that? Yeah, thank you. There's one. So real simple, just like you were going to the polls. Ballot is just the 2 names that we'd received. There was no additional names even received throughout today. They're alphabetical. So each member will put an X, they'll fold it, we'll hand it to Town Administrator Sky, and then it's shockingly not an Amazon box. You can collect them in this.
It's a ballot box.
Yeah, it's your ballot box for the evening. So we'll fold them, throw them in there. Town Administrator Sky will then be responsible for counting them. So on his tally sheet, it'll has each person, there's 6 rows, and it'll either be a vote for one person, a vote for another person, or if it was a blank, if somebody did not vote. So if they were to turn this in empty, which they may if they want to, it's basically an abstention, and it would lower the total number of votes. And then whatever the total number of votes is, right? So if there's 6 of us, if 6 votes go in, somebody that has the majority, 4 would need it for the appointment. If there was, say there was 1 abstention, the number of votes is then down to 5. So do the math, we would need 3 people. So just like we're all voting in a town election. So in all these processes taken from Robert's Rules of Order, which we follow. So pass this to Ari, empty. And then after Ari makes his report, it's then up to myself as the chair to read those back to him. And then based on the number of votes, that is our person that will put on the school committee until April of next year. All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
Have we articulated the next step for the candidate, for those that are appointed?
So next step should be talk to the town clerk. So the town clerk will say the tally report, they'll be part of the minutes, and then the person that gets the most will report to the town clerk or get a phone call from her usually. If she doesn't already have their contact information, then we'll ask that they make sure they provide it.
So they have to be sworn in at that point.
Yep.
Then, okay.
When's the next school committee meeting?
It's not until August, so there's
Okay.
time,
Save
right?
time.
But we at least want to get
Yep.
any individual up to any of that.
Yep.
Make sure they're on email distributions, make sure all that aspect of it, so.
Right, okay.
So the sooner they're sworn in, the
Yep.
quicker then we can start the work of.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from 6 voting parties? No? Okay, so you're You're marking one name, or no name if you're essentially abstaining from the vote. Fold it when everybody is complete. Art will come and collect them, and then he'll do his tally. So, if there's no other questions, consider the polls open, and we'll go forward.
Mr. Chairman, tally these on there and then announce the result, or?
Yes, sir, if you would. Have all parties voted?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so polls are closed. Mr. Sky will look at those in a moment and report back. While Mr. Sky is doing that again, to the two people, thank you very much for putting your names out. Out of the thousands of people in town, you're the only two to step forward. I think you both have really amazing backgrounds, even if they're of different kinds. I think whichever one of you receives the votes will do very well this evening. The one thing we will have to talk about is if there's a tie vote, because if there's a tie, you essentially have to vote again. So, let's see. Even getting the pens back, you're good.
Steve also. They're actually Lakeville Police Department pens, so.
Okay.
Taxes without the pen.
Okay, the majority.
There is a majority?
Yeah.
Okay, could you please count the number that you have for each candidate?
4 for Brenna Donahue and 2 for Crystal Lane.
Okay, so no blanks?
No blanks.
All right, so with the tally being a 4 for Ms. Donahue and 2 for Ms. Ing, Ms. Donahue, you'll be the appointment for the next 8 months. Again, thank you very much to both of you. I hope you all will stay involved and in 8 months, consider running. So I know you said you might not, but you might get hooked from the looks of it here.
Can I make a comment real quick?
You may.
Okay. Should I go to my?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind.
While she's making that.
Yeah, while she's on her
just
way.
To clarify, it's not 8 months to start running, it's actually January, right?
Yes,
The election
you have to
is in.
pull papers.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there is a process to do that, so I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I don't want anybody to take this as a loss. I don't want anybody to take this personally. I don't want you to be upset. I don't want any negative feelings in this room at all. I am doing this for our town. I'm doing this for our school system. And if any of you want to talk to me, I am welcome. You're welcome. I am more than open to talking. Okay? So I don't want any negative feelings about this, and I appreciate it. Mrs. Barron was my kindergarten teacher, so taking her position for this, it feels good.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Brenna.
All right.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so moving on, we'll be talking to Chief O'Brien to discuss the possible improved ambulance billing rates. School committee members, thank you for coming this evening, appreciate it. I believe we have no further business, unless you want to hang out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, have a good evening. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. All right. Let's talk about billing rates. Get to number 8.
It's roughly been about 3 years since we've adjusted our rates. We charge for EMS services, transports at a different level, whether it's BLS, ALS. And there's a framework within Massachusetts, a system for doing it. And the recommended rates that we're looking at tonight are an average of comparable communities. So you don't want to be, we can set our own rates, we can decide what they are. But we don't tend to want to stand out too much. And the intention is to indirectly offset the cost of providing EMS services. And we've been very successful in the last 4 years of maximizing our revenue. And in my brain, I'm transferring the cost of every taxpayer in Lakeville to the end users of the service. And people outside of Lakeville, at last count, last time we analyzed it, we had nearly 20% of our patients were from outside of Lakeville. So this is a way of transferring the cost of our services onto people who visit Lakeville and use our services. and which provides some relief to the taxpayer as well.
Chief, would you say you said it's in 2 or 3 years, is this the typical cadence you'd say that makes sense to go back and look, or is this something you'd like to do a little more frequently?
Well, it's something that, you know, there's so many things going on and there's only so much capacity to address all kinds of things that it kind of slips through the crack, to be nice. So it's something we discussed a year ago and for whatever reason, it kind of got put off a year. When we looked at Ari and I looked at the CPI data for that time frame, we were looking at CPI increase, what, 17.5%?
Yeah. And we put it off deliberately because there's a lot of volatility, both amongst residents, people coming out of COVID, companies that were doing, it was really just very uncertain. It wasn't a good time to talk about raising ambulance rates. But now, you know, we know things that we still have higher inflation, but it's kind of settled down a bit. And it's a good time to take a look at this, and it has been several years now.
So I'm kind of ambitious with plans for the fire department, and I know none of this revenue is directly back to the fire department. I know that it indirectly, I like to think of it as indirectly offsetting the cost of our operation.
Any questions for the chief? We've got the old rates and the new rates and the average rates in front of us.
I did have a question though. How have we been, our success rate as far as collecting on these?
Well,
I think that is relevant to.
As far as what, Lorraine, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, just the collecting of,
I can get that exact number. I don't have it with me, and I'd be giving a guess, which I can guess if you don't mind. But I think it's around the 82-83% mark, which is historically low for our provider. And they were coming off a data breach a year ago, and that data breach had caused them to close up shop completely for a couple of months, which skewed the data. It skewed their collection rates lower, and they're just now recovering back to full steam. So that statistic they provided us was an eye opener for me, and it's something I followed up on. And that's what they pointed to as the data breach as a reason behind that.
And it looks like for the most part, we're just coming up to the average number for the top 50. But glad we're coming up and recovering, not getting left behind. I mean, I didn't have any particular questions. How well we're doing on collecting is a good one. I think that's always something we'll be up against, no matter what.
There's historically in 2018 we made about 445,000 annually, and we saw an increase in call volume about 10% a year, and the rest of that is just a change in practice. It's just something we were paying attention to it more. We scrutinized our calls more, how they were documented, and we were more responsive to their requests for follow-up. Say if they had a bad address or if they had a billing problem, like we get on it right away. And if you're familiar with ambulance billing or medical billing, time to collection, like your rate of collection decreases with time passing. So we really put the press on, and so what we've seen in the last 2 years is we've had $1 million, just about $1 million in revenue annually. So it's up considerably from that 4 years ago, 445,000, but it's kind of plateaued, and because we've kind of run out of, knobs to twist and adjustments to make. So this is kind of, now it's like Ari was referring to, now we kind of a better, from a position of comfort to really figure out what we should increase at, what rate we should increase at, if that makes sense.
I know, determining the date of when you're going to look at an increase isn't ideal, no formula, but I do know that when we had done it in 2020, it hadn't been done for a while before that, 5 years. So we definitely know 5 years isn't a good, stretch. So I'm kind of happy to see it. And, all the things aside, like you said, coming out of COVID and everything else, so I really appreciated seeing this on the agenda to know that it's actually being paid attention to. So
I'd like to be able to come back on this every 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Unless unless we, and, you know, sometimes if you're in an environment where inflation rate is kind of flat,
Yeah.
and rates aren't going up, then that's fine, but, you know, tell me when that's ever been the case when it comes to healthcare, so.
He's my check, you know, so I'm like the greedy guy that wants to do big things and pay for them, and Ari's has to balance me out of it.
Okay, if there is no other questions then, we'll, entertain a motion to adopt the new rates as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All right, member Fabian,
Aye.
Carboni,
Aye.
Day, aye. Thank you much, Chief, appreciate the work.
Thank you, I appreciate your time. Thanks, Ari.
Agenda item 9, discuss and possible vote on annual board, committee, and commission appointments. So the way Tracy put these together for us was to bundle essentially all the appointments that would have the same expiration date. So we've got all of the 1-year renewals up front. And I think it's a 3-year. We got 3-year renewals, and that's that. So there are a few in here that have, either Lorraine or Leah on them. So I didn't know if there was any that you were looking to change, or if you want to keep them as is, if you want to swap me out on any of them. Otherwise, I can just go through and read all these and the positions. I marked them up if you want to read them out. Let's see. The first one was Capital Expenditure Committee. Leah, if you want to stay on that or change.
I don't mind staying on that one.
Okay. Lorraine, Economic Development Committee.
Yep, I'd like to stay on that. We're looking to bring that back to the table.
Good. Good to hear. Lorraine, also Emergency Planning Committee.
Yes, I'd like to be on that one.
Lorraine again, Energy Advisory Committee.
Well, we don't meet very often, so I'm happy to,
Okay.
to do that one.
Well, I guess you're the chair of the Fire Station Building Committee, so I probably should leave you there. Let's see. Middleborough Gas Electric Commission Ad Hoc Representative, it's also you, Lorraine?
Yeah, they meet once a month, and I've had some challenges, with, you know, scheduling conflicts on getting there. So if somebody else would like to sit in on that, I do find them to be extremely informative.
Okay.
I don't mind taking it, Brian. I know you worked on the day too, so.
Yeah, the daytime meetings, evening meetings, or general?
They're mostly, Wednesdays in the evening at 6:30, but sometimes they'll be a little earlier.
Okay, that's up to you.
I thought it was during the day. I mean, if it's in the evening and you want it, that's fine. I was just gonna take it.
Say it's
if it
once
was
a
in the
month?
day.
Yes.
Once a month. I can probably do that.
Yeah, if it's too much, we can change that one around, right?
All right, we'll call back in if necessary.
Yep.
Before we move on,
Yep.
the Bachelor delegate, just for full transparency.
Mhm.
So after Kelly Halley left, Christina Katsarides did it on an interim basis while Lori was interim. She's done that for the past year. Now that, Lori is, you know, full-time and settled in and everything, appropriate to bring her back as, you know, bring the COA director back as the delegate.
On the GATRA.
Gotcha.
Bring Lori back?
It had been Kelly Halley. She left.
Oh, okay, because we have Lori on here now, on the
Yeah,
list.
yes, right. That's why Lori's on there.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were suggesting a change.
It was
Like,
Christina.
no, it's already on
Okay.
there.
No.
Gotcha, I apologize.
Just wanted to notice the difference.
Gotcha. The MBTA Advisory Board,
I
like that one,
really,
don't you?
yeah, I do like that one.
okay. Then also Senior Center Addition Feasibility, that makes sense to keep.
Yep.
And I think that was it. So if that one change is it, I'll run down and read them all if you'd like. All right.
Stipulate as attached, if you like, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
You just, you know, state as attached.
Oh, I think we've had people get upset with
Okay,
that
fine.
before, so
All right.
we'll,
It's in the packet, but that's fine.
I know. I'll do a 1 year. All right, so entertain a motion to make the following reappointments that will expire on July 31st, 2024, for the following: Police Department, Police Officer and Constables, Joseph Cowing, Alexander Malo, Darryl Makowitz, Harold Marshall, Jared Tahe, Zachary Mosher, Reserve Police Officer and Constable Lance Reed, Raymond Molesky, Special Police Officer Antonio Amaral, Patrick Crean, Paul Hunt, John Vickery, Robert Stefanian, Jesse Drain, James Bowles. Matrons, Ioana Adesso, Kristen J. Campbell, Robin Bellows, Karen Conway, Amanda Correa. Keeper of the Lockup, Matthew Perkins. Surveyor of Wood, Bark and Lumber, Fence Viewer and Field Driver, Stephen Loons. 175th Anniversary Committee, Brian Reynolds, Joan Gladue Morton, Geraldine Taylor, Delilah Murphy, Nancy LaFave, Felicia Carter, Robert Barak, Kathleen Barak. ADA Coordinator, Ari Sky. Alternate Building Inspector, Robert Whalen Jr. Assistant Building Inspector, Brandon Maroney. Agricultural Commission, Tracy Trelevian, Associate Member. Assistant Board of Health Agents, John Ashley, Gail Joseph. Assawamsett Pond Complex Representative, Nancy Yates. Board of Appeals, Associate Members, Christopher Sheedy, Anthony Zuko. Cable Television Committee, Walter Healy Jr., Thomas Surignano. Capital Expenditures Committee, Leah Fabian, Ari Sky, Maureen Candido. Economic Development Committee, Tim Fletcher, James F. Rogers II, Lori Driscoll, John Oliver Jr., Lorraine Carboni. Emergency Planning Committee, Mike O'Brien, Matthew Perkins, Franklin Moniz, Ari Sky, Greg Goodwin, Nathan Darling, Lori Fahey, Alan Strauss, Jose Invencio, Thomas Parento, Lorraine Carboni, Pamela Grant. Emergency Response Coordinator, Michael O'Brien. Energy Advisory Committee, Donald Foster, Nathan Darling, Richard Velez, Lorraine Carboni, Joseph Chamberlain II. Fire Station Building Committee, Mike O'Brien, Lorraine Carboni, Ari Sky, Nathan Darling, Larry Costin, Peter Conroy, Michael McCullough, Matthew Simon, Kate Shing. Mineral Gas and Electric Commission Ad Hoc Representative, Brian Day. GATRA Delegate, Lori Fahey. Hazardous Waste Coordinator, Michael O'Brien. Historical Commission Associate Member, Felicia Carter. Inspector of Milk, Edwin Cullen. Inspector of Wires, Emilio Gaza. LakeCAM, Jonathan Watkins. Lakeville Emergency Management Agency, Director, Michael O'Brien. Deputy Director, Pamela Grant. Master Plan Implementation Committee, Rita Garbett, Rodney Dixon, John Lynch, Ari Sky, Patrick Marshall, Joseph Chamberlain II, Denise Barbudo. MBTA Advisory Board, Leah Fabian. Municipal Coordinator Right to Know, Michael O'Brien. Municipal Hearings Officer, Matthew Perkins. NIMS Coordinator, Michael O'Brien. Old Colony Council Area Agency on Aging Advisory Committee, Lori Fahey Representative. Open Space Committee, Amy Knox, Brian Reynolds, Elizabeth Nash. Joan Gladue Morton, Gary Flaherty. Plumbing and Gas Inspector, John Catalano. Alternate Plumbing and Gas Inspector, Dennis Driscoll. Public Health Nurse, Lori Dismarius. Rent Control Board, Leah Fabian, Brian Day, Lorraine Carboni. Sealer of Weights and Measures, David Enos. Senior Center Addition Feasibility Study Committee, Nate Darling, Leah Fabian, Ari Sky, Lori Fahey, Paul Nee, Gay DeRocha, Devaney Reese Boydigen. Smart Growth Reporting Officer, Ari Sky. Special Assistant Health Agents, James Romano, Nate Darling. Stormwater Management Coordinator, Frank Moniz. Part-time Nurse, Jennifer Pombo. Town Council, KP Law. Tree Warden, Franklin Moniz. And I apologize for anybody's name I botched.
So moved. Second.
That was impressive, I'd like to say.
That was impressive.
Fabian,
Aye.
Carboni,
Aye.
Day, aye. Thank you, that's the big one. All right, this is the last one. Entertain a motion for 3-year renewals. The following appointments expire July 31st, 2023. If reappointed, the terms will expire July 31st, 2026. Police Department, Police Captain and Constable, Sean Joyce. Police Lieutenant and Constable, Steve Lanoons and Ryan Maltese. Police Officer and Constable, Emilian Mello, Andrew Serdequist, Robert Schiffer. Agricultural Commission, David Thomas, Cindy Barber, Crystal Ing. Board of Appeals, Jeffrey Youngquist, Christopher Campo. Community Preservation Committee, Kathleen Barak. Council on Aging, Hillary Wood, Nancy Richmond. Historical Commission, Nancy LaFave, Joan Gladue Morton. Lakeville Arts Council, Jacqueline Kennedy. Town Forest Committee, Nate Darling.
So moved.
Second.
Carboni,
Aye.
Fabian,
Aye.
Day, aye. They're done.
Yay.
Yay. That is a list.
Can I just add at this point that there's definitely some repetition of names here.
Yes, there is.
And, you know, I know a lot of the folks that are on these committees, including myself, we really love what we do, but almost you know, just about everyone is welcoming to new people. So I think you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, some of the other positions that are, you know, looking for volunteers. So, you know, I guess every year I see the same names now over and over again for, it can't, like you said, it can't be that bad if people are signing up to do it year after year after year. So, if anyone's on the fence, take a look at what we have available. You just might like it. You know, you just really might like it, so.
Do we post a full list of
I think
all
it
these
is
things? I mean, not like the
posted.
police department, but the whole thing in one place? Like, I know we have the openings. I don't know if we have like something like this
All the committees.
hanging around. Like positions.
I know we have all the committees listed on the website. You have to go. I have to check.
Like, I wouldn't even know that we had a surveyor of wood, bark, and lumber, fence viewer, and field driver if it wasn't for this meeting every year.
I think it's in the report, the annual report.
It is
if I'm not
it is in the
mistaken.
town report,
All
yeah.
right, so we can look in there. Okay, good. All right, moving on. Discuss the draft calendar for fall special town meeting. So, Ari, thank you.
This is a very early straw man. We're not requesting a vote of any kind. You would, schedule the meeting at the next meeting on the 31st, but I didn't want to drop you with it, you know, cold. So it's just to kind of work through some ideas and thoughts. We're starting to put together a few items for town meeting that we know about. There aren't, I don't have a comprehensive list of any kind, but we have some things that could come out of our planning discussions, preparing for the board. There are a couple things in capital, in the CIP that are called for the fall. Betty's Neck, Senior Center, I don't know if those will move to that point or not, but they're on there. There's going to be the free cash disposition, probably putting some money in stabilization. We may have something to talk about with fire, which we alluded to tonight. We're planning to have the OSRD, the open space, residential development bylaw, which was brought forward and delayed. I've heard some talk about, I think the town clerk wants to take another look at, is going to request taking another look at the appointed clerk. Then we also, as you recall, the board directed us to look at the idea of moving town meeting to June, so that's in there as well. So nothing at this point that's, there's a road acceptance as well. So nothing at this point that's you know, earth shattering or huge, but there'll be some business to do. We went with, November 13th again as a straw man, only because it is the same Monday in November that we've used for the past 2 years in the calendar. So I'm not wedded to that date at all. I'm really just throwing it out there to see if the board gives some informal guidance as to whether this concept works or not, and if it doesn't, you know, what we should do instead.
As long as there's not 29 articles, I appreciate it.
There will not be 29 articles.
No, 39.
29 articles being going for new town administrator, so yeah.
The only thought I had was, is there enough time between, I know this is just an estimation, is there enough time between opening the warrant and closing the warrant? Because we would only have one meeting in between that time. We only have a meeting, I think, on August 21st.
Well, you're not gonna be doing,
Or let me refactor that a bit. We have one meeting, and are there enough meetings for the other boards that might bring?
that's more of a question, because, you know, that doesn't really matter too much to you, because you're opening and closing the warrant.
Yeah.
But the other committees, I don't know, it's possible. This is the same structures we used in the past. But again, if that seems like not quite enough time, we can look at adjusting it out a little bit.
And my only thought was like, we should probably ping them all and say like, hey, are you planning on working anything? Is this going to cut it too close? Because I don't want to load up spring.
So we have done that to some degree, which is why I know what we want to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think we're going to see a huge rush of articles. I really don't.
Okay. What do you think? You've been through a bunch of these.
So, you know, November is tough because it's also Thanksgiving, so it's kind of like you never want to have it the week of Thanksgiving because people do start to go away. It's tough for me too, the month of November. But, you know,
There's nothing about November that's sacrosanct.
that's what?
That's sacrosanct.
Oh,
Nothing
okay.
about, is, you know, so the only way that November, it's not gonna affect the setting of the tax rate.
Right,
You do it in December, you do it in October. And you could, November, there's nothing about November that's required here.
right. Only our annual has a
That's set.
bylaw.
Right.
Right.
So we could push it a little if we wanted to.
Could move, yeah, absolutely. If the board wants to make it, you know, I don't know.
Do the schools have Thanksgiving week off? I forget, or is it just 2 days
No,
for
they just
Thanksgiving?
have, like, it's usually a half a day on Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday off.
Thanksgiving is the 23rd.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking quorum wise.
You'd have trouble with a town meeting on the 20th.
That whole week's
I
probably.
wouldn't
Yeah,
recommend, I wouldn't recommend
And
that.
the 13th is relatively just kind of,
Yeah, because I would say either keep it that 13th week or then,
Like 27th or something.
there's one Monday holiday in November, isn't there?
Veterans Day.
Thursday's on
Yeah.
Saturday.
oh, is it?
Yeah, it's Saturday the 11th.
So then do people have the Monday
Yeah.
off or
No,
do
we
they
have
have Friday?
off. Friday. off.
Friday?
It's Friday.
Do the schools have Friday off as well?
I don't know.
Probably.
Okay. It's probably
I
because,
can check real quick.
yeah, because if the holiday's on Sunday, they usually have Monday. If it's on Saturday, it's usually Friday, so. I just don't want to plan it for the 13th,
feel like
if
if-
it's a
if we-
holiday.
Yeah, like I feel like if we didn't do the 13th, then you're probably looking at like December 4th or 11th.
Okay, hold on, let's call up the calendar here. Yeah, they're closed on the 10th.
Okay, so the Friday.
So school's open on Monday,
On the 13th, yeah.
yeah.
The only other holiday after that, before the end of the year, is Christmas on Monday.
All right. I mean, do we just want to kind of work with the 13th for now and see if anything comes up?
I was this close to booking a trip to leave on the 12th, so.
Well, tell us now.
Yeah, well, that's why if we're gonna, I can live with the 13th.
Can we all come? We'll do a town meeting on a cruise ship or something?
Sure, no problem with, all on the beach. So if it's gonna be the 13th, I would rather be hard set on the 13th than waiting to see.
Gotcha.
But I think we should do that anyways for planning purposes because,
Mr. Chairman, I have a scheduling issue on the week of the 20th
20th,
of
okay. November or December?
November.
Yeah, I think that whole-
My oldest 30th birthday is that week. so-
Yeah, I think that whole week would be tough anyways. I think that's one where people might take the kids out a couple days early and travel for
I
Thanksgiving.
mean, I really do think attendance is sort of, reliant upon what's on the warrant. So if it's just routine business, the closer you get into December, we're looking sometimes for a quorum, so, I like to try to do it ahead of that, but I don't have a problem waiting either till December, but if we're gonna wait, I think we should get it done the first week if we
Well,
can.
as you can see, just one more plug I'll say. We have warrant review October 23rd, which is a long time before the 13th. So, and that, which says there's a lot of play in this. So if you wanted to go the 6th, you
Yeah.
could do that.
still.
Go earlier.
Yeah, you could,
Let's see
you could make
what's,
that work. I think election day's on the 7th.
what,
Lil would, our town clerk would go
yeah, we might want,
crazy if it was in the same week.
Yeah, she would, and that way, yeah, we were talking out loud.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
When
let's
is
ask
the
her.
election?
Hmm?
When is the
It's
election?
on the 6th, but who's up?
is there anything?
I don't know if there's anything this year, next year, definitely.
2023.
There's still gotta be some kind of election and nothing on the state ballot?
I
There's
don't
gotta
think
be.
so. Unless there's a referendum or something.
This might be an off year for a fall election. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
The reps in the Senate were last year. That's 2 years.
Well, yeah, I'd say we probably have to talk to Lil no matter what. Just say like, do
Oh,
either
yeah,
of these dates
make sure
you
she's available, one.
in the auditorium?
Right.
Maybe that's what we should do, is just check with the schools and see
Yeah,
auditorium
we
wise, and
will.
Okay.
go from there.
Says the only thing up right now for November 7th is a special state election in the Worcester and Hampshire Senate District.
Okay.
So,
Well, they
so
won't
I'll
be
get
coming
everything
anyways.
out.
All right, so play it by ear for now, 6th or 13th maybe, and we'll see what the school's got available, what the clerk feels better with.
So. I'll bounce
Actually, no,
those-
the election, that doesn't matter now.
I'll just bounce those
Yeah.
two around. We'll see what the schools tell us. It's good to have some flexibility, so
Yeah,
I'll bounce those
alright.
around. We'll see what we come up with. Okay, great, no problem.
Okay, rolling into item 11, discuss scheduling August, September, and October board meetings. I think we passed around some dates over email. So we've got July 31st coming up. All right, August the 21st was the only one?
Yeah.
The way the days land?
Yeah,
Yep, so I really have a busy 4 days before that.
Okay.
So, and there's a few things unsure about that date. And I can't, it honestly can't be helped, and if it could, I would, but I can't. So I would kindly ask Jose if he could hybrid me in on the 21st.
Which one?
August. So if everything works out fine, then I'll be able to be here, but, there's a couple of, that one's tough.
Well, if not, maybe there's another day that week we can try to push to.
Yeah,
If we
I
need to.
think, Lorraine had a conflict on another day and
The
then there's,
22nd.
yeah, vacation, so I would rather not delay it
Okay.
and, you know, you just,
All right, so we'll play it, but let us know if something gets a bit pressing, and
yeah.
if we need to, we'll do something. Let's see, so then that brings us into September. We have the 18th, is that correct, Ari?
yeah.
4 weeks?
It's, yeah, it's the 5th and the 18th.
Oh, the
reason
5th, I'm sorry. I missed
Reason
that
the
one.
5th is because it's the day after Labor Day.
Right. So everybody get back from the beach. The 5th, the 18th, and then must be missing one.
Do we go 3 weeker there?
1, 2, 3. Oh, we said the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
We said 10th and the 23rd. I
Yep.
mean, you could, in theory, 2 weeks from the 18th would actually be the 2nd of October, so you could do, but then you could go, you know, you could be talking about 3 in October, which is a lot of meetings.
Yeah,
I don't think you want to do that, so.
and then that brings us into town meeting time.
Right.
So that should work. We'll probably have our usual short meeting right before town meeting.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so we'll pencil those in. If something comes up, let us know.
Okay.
I know October is busy for you, so let us know what we gotta do.
Yep, thank you. No, those dates work okay, actually. It works around everything I have, so,
Well, how about that?
yeah.
All right, anything else, or move on to item 12? All right, so just we're gonna keep this in as a standing agenda item going forward. So we've got building committee updates on senior center feasibility study. Has there been an additional meeting?
So we were scheduled for a meeting Wednesday, but we're gonna have to reschedule because our project manager had is having a personal, something in his family come up. So he provided us with some information, but we're asking for a little bit more on some of the study stuff. So whatever we have, though, we're gonna try to get out to, everyone. So he did like a tentative plan, but didn't do the whole write-up.
Okay.
So we're just asking him to, finish up the write-up and we'll try to get it out to everyone. Hopefully the meeting will be next week
Yeah,
instead
right now
of
we're
this
looking
week.
at possibly, it looks like the 19th,
Yep,
which, and we're gonna squeeze it in before the,
yeah.
fire station building committee.
Oh, nice.
Hey, you may as well have a marathon day, Ari.
I'd rather have one marathon day than two night meeting days, so
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, that's fine.
Yep. So, anyways, so, you know, we'll hopefully have everything we need in a couple of days and then get it distributed to everyone so we can all be in the know when we meet next week.
Okay, sounds good. Do you have any questions on that project, Larry? Okay. Any updates on fire station?
Just that our next meeting's on the 18th, right, 19th, excuse me. We're in not negotiations, but Ari's been, working with the, project manager, on the, agreement.
And good scope,
Yeah,
in the process of putting
Yeah.
together the, contract. Which we should, but they'll be, next meeting, they'll be coming to the meeting on the 19th.
Yep.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And the first task after that's gonna be looking out for the architect. So inside of the
Yeah.
application process.
Alrighty.
yeah, thanks, Ari.
All right, moving on, discuss and possible vote to designate a select board member to conduct contract negotiations with the town administrator. So Ari is now into his third year on his 3-year contract. So once we complete the review process, next step will be, the board talking about, potential contract extension with Ari. So we'll appoint somebody to drive those. I did reach out to town council to understand how these things work. And since Ari is a non-union member, we actually can also meet in executive session if we want to, for any kind of strategy. He doesn't have to be there.
I'd rather not, thank you.
And I think I forget what meeting it was, but a few meetings ago, I think we said we'd like to try to get that wrapped up September, October or so. Maybe before town meeting, we can try to do that. So is there anybody that would like to be the point person for the negotiations with Ari, or?
I think Brian Day would make an excellent candidate, so I'd like to make a motion to appoint, or designate Brian Day as the select board member to conduct contract negotiations with the town administrator.
Second.
Okay. That was quick. Thank you. Member Fabian?
Aye.
Carboni?
Aye.
Day, aye. Thank you. I'll send out some information to you then on maybe setting something up. And Ari, you and I will chat. Sound good?
So that was because he's not union, we can meet in executive session.
Correct.
Yes.
To
Yep.
have a strategy session.
I believe if you'll recall, when you first appointed me, you had a number of meetings where you talked about.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, so we asked, and KP Law confirmed.
Yep.
They also sent me, they had an updated, executive session cheat sheet. And
Yep.
it was like in there, it wasn't in the old one I had, so.
Oh, can you forward that?
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, and I would request that maybe we do have one executive session prior to, anything that.
Yeah, happy to do that.
And that way, we can all bring our ideas and whatever, and you can go from there.
Sounds good. All right.
I'm not wearing a hat with a propeller on it. I'll do that right now.
That's not on my list.
Okay, just checking. Okay, you gotta draw a line somewhere.
The red nose is.
All right, so, moving on then, do we have any new business to properly come before the board? Yes, no?
On my end.
All right, Leah, anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, old business, I had one small thing, and I apologize, I should have put it under the committee updates. Old Colony Regional Vocational had a building committee meeting on the 29th of June. Nothing real, I shouldn't say nothing real, nothing major has happened at this point. All they've done is, all the towns passed the new feasibility study at their town meetings. So combined $1 million between the 500,000 Old Colony put aside and the 500 combined between the towns. They had to put together a budget allocation to go to MBSA to define how much is gonna go to OPM, how much is gonna go to design, how much is gonna go to site and environmental, and then a contingency bucket. So Director Polanski put that together, presented it to the board. The board did vote to go ahead and allow him to submit that to MSBA. So that's really it. The only question I had at that meeting was like, if everything continued to move forward and all the towns approve whatever it is that comes out of it, like how far out are we looking? They said like aggressively, I think 3.5 to 5 years, but probably further the way that schedules align. So it's, I guess if all stars align, it would be at the end of our existing capital improvement plan. It might trickle in, but probably just outside of it right now. We've worked with this
Yeah,
process
in my experience,
before.
what happened, when the MSBA lets you in through a feasibility study, they've got you in their queue. So, they meet quarterly, the board does. So it'd be a question of how long it takes to get that feasibility study done, and it's a very prescribed, you know, MSBA is a very impressive bureaucracy, and it's a very prescribed, structured study. And, the whole nature of it is defined, that's what it needs to look like. And, once that study's done, then it gets put into the queue for for funding. And yeah, it usually, it's been my experience anyway, my prior gig, that they would know it was coming. So they'd try to be ready for it when that one's done. So it's not like waiting for 3 years for it to go ahead and be funded. It's usually, you know, within a couple meetings.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is it funded similarly like we do ours where, they go for like design money first, or is it just all?
They fund the whole schmagegi.
Okay.
Yeah, they fund the whole thing.
Technical term?
Yeah, they fund the whole thing. And it's a challenge because the way they can get away with that, really honestly, is that they will only fund a certain amount of dollars per square foot. So it doesn't matter to them what the project's going to cost. That's our problem. You know, they fund X, I don't know what the number is now, but X dollars per square foot.
I don't know a number. The other thing I forgot to mention, which was, I don't think a number has been settled on. They're allowed to go into this feasibility study, they being the school, saying either we want a feasibility study based on like status quo, which I think is about 560 students, or anywhere up to like 810. So there's a big sliding scale there that they could consider. Because they're talking about like, do they add plumbing and HVAC that would draw in a certain number of kids, and then do they want to be able to add that into more, or just add that? So I don't know what that number that they're looking for is yet.
And Vokes are kind of challenging because they have a number of activities in Vokes that are not, the MSBA just won't fund.
Yeah, and equipment.
Equipment, that kind of thing. So it's you know, with a straight academic school, it's a lot more straightforward. But when you get into a Vogue high school, it becomes particularly difficult to nail down.
Cape Cod Tech was like 40-something% return,
Right.
I think, so less than half.
So,
That was my next question.
So I happen to be married to somebody who's going to Diamond who's going to start working at Diamond in Fall River. And that's a $293 million campus that they're doing. It's massive. And the funding rate from MSBA is around 50-something%. And that's with Fall River in there, which is a max 70% jurisdiction. So that kind of gives you a sense right there what we're talking about.
So it's kind of, I don't know what to call it, but I mean, this is the time to advocate for our kids and giving them programs, but at the same time, everything we're advocating for is going to cost a whole lot more money. But, you know, I hope that the folks that are making the decision, I mean, I really do think we need things like HVAC and, because for kids to go to these trade schools after they graduate from high school is a whole lot of money. It would be great if we could help our kids by giving them you know, a place. So I would love to be able to see a couple more of those, you know, areas of study added in. It's just, it's gonna cost a lot more money, you know?
So it'll have to be an exclusion, it'll have to be a dead override, there's just no way.
Across 5 towns.
Yeah, across 5 towns. It's just gonna be and the district's gonna have to work it out for it, just getting that passed. Yeah.
All right, that was the only thing. I apologize. I'll make sure we put that as a C going forward, just in case there is anything. There's not another meeting scheduled for a while, so I don't anticipate any updates.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Doors and windows at Assawampset, has anything been done yet?
So they weren't there last week because they had it was holiday week, basically. My understanding is they're coming on site this week. We have a meeting tomorrow, one of our coordination meetings. I'll get some update then. But the last I heard was that they were on schedule. There's still this issue with the delay in the delivery, but they've moved some other things around to try to keep it on target. You know, it's not going to be done by the summer 10 summer sessions. It's just not.
Well, I mean, it never was.
It never really
scheduled.
was.
It
Yeah,
was
it's
always
gonna-
scheduled
It's
for
gonna be done in the fall. It's
October.
gonna be finished by the fall.
Yeah,
It'll only be done by the time, the weather comes along.
yeah.
So, yeah.
That's my concern. I
Yeah.
just want to be sure with the delay that.
So I'll have this update tomorrow, which is the first meeting we've had in a few weeks, because I took a break for the holidays last week. And, if there's anything of significance, I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah, maybe you could just give us, I don't know, Brian and Maureen want an update, but just,
Happy
I
to.
almost just feel like I want to know when they're starting, that
Yeah.
way we know
Yeah.
that they're there and.
That would be news of
then-
significance, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yep, so, okay.
It was in your announcements, I apologize, but when something you said just tickled my brain. Any backwards progress at DPW with all that rain right after the foundation was put in, or is it?
So they had, when we had the rains 2 weeks ago, it really messed things up. There's, the way the layout is, you've got that kind of the full basement, then you've got this section between the basement and the foundation, which has a ledge. And the reason it has a ledge is so they didn't have to, we saved some money. They saved some money. It didn't, allow them not to have to pour new footings or supports for the structure, for the main structure. So, and the way they're doing that is they're basically building a foundation that looks kind of like a box and then a smaller rectangle. And the smaller rectangle is being filled with gravel and dirt, and it's going to be another ledge to hold kind of a weight-bearing ledge. So that whole thing kind of fell apart with the rain a few weeks ago, and they had to basically rebuild it. But at this point, they have waterproofed and sealed it up. I have not been there, did not go over today, but they're probably getting pretty close to starting to build structure now, because the foundation's nearly done.
Nice.
So I don't know what today's rain did, but they're moving along. It's impressive.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
Cool.
that's great.
All right, only other thing we had was correspondence, which is very long, but if you are an Xfinity subscriber, there is a number of channel changes, things being added, removed, shifted. I don't know if this is on the packet on the website, right? So if you're
Yeah,
interested,
it is.
long list of channels here that are changing or moving around.
I also went to the subscribers too, so.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, no other business. Entertain a motion to close at 7:46.
So moved.
Second,
All right, Fabian,
all right.
Carboni,
So, aye.
Dave, aye, we're done. Thank you.